Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're listening. That's the beauty of podcasting. Welcome into Touchdown in Paradise here on the Finns Talk Sports Network. I'm Justin.
I'm Joe.
I'm Russ.
And I'm Pete.
And after a week in Dublin, pretending that we were there with Florida State and Georgia Tech, one of those guys flew home pretty happy. The other one, well, they got mocked by the entire world once again for losing to the state of Georgia in another way. Yes, so indeed, we're going to kick off the show with that. Nope. Georgia Tech stuns Florida State in Dublin 24-21 with a game-winning field goal as time expires. Jamal Haynes, the star of the game for Georgia Tech, 11 rushing, 75 yards, 2 touchdowns. And meanwhile, DJU played okay, but he struggled yet again with some of his downfield accuracy, going 19 for 27, 193 yards. Let's start from reverse, all the way at Pete. Pete, is Florida State done?
Oh, my God. You know, in any normal year, I'd say they're dead. They're a dead dog right now. They're not, because they can still potentially win the ACC. I mean, if they run out and they beat teams like Clemson and everyone else in the ACC, and they have a strong performance the rest of the season, like ball out, I think they can get in. I mean, that's the new reality of college football is I feel like you might even have teams that meet in the championship game, and the team that loses still also gets into the playoffs. So they're not out, but dang, that didn't look good. And I was kind of right on what I was thinking, where it was like, hey, it was a game across the pond. You know, both teams neither team's at home. It's a unique environment. It's a week before everyone else plays. What happened last year, that's probably still on their mind, but I didn't think they'd lose. So that was definitely a shocker to me. We'll just have to wait and see if that means Georgia Tech is like really good, or was it just like a week one lapse, or does Florida State suck? But yeah, they can still make it, Justin, no doubt. But I don't think they will.
Yeah, going back to his Clemson days, I noticed DJU, it seemed to Clemson that they'd always find a way to win, whether it be by their own grace or by the refs giving them some help. But this time I just feel like his luck ran out. Florida State's not going to get that a little extra bounce that he got at Clemson. For whatever reason, I don't know why. Russ, is Florida State done?
I mean, I'm with Pete on this. It's definitely a different world we're in now. There's 12 teams in the playoff. We could see teams from a Power 5 conference with 3 losses. So are they out? No. Was it not the best performance? But there's also, DJU there's a reason this is his third school. If he was the guy, he'd probably be in the NFL by now. You know what? So there's a reason he's at his third school.
Yeah, and I also want to say it's not like some of these other guys that keep getting injured and stuff. Like, he's bouncing around to these schools because he's not winning or he's not performing. It's not like he's going through these major injuries where he's going to have to extend his career. That's not the case.
I mean, this is third school, so there's a reason this is number 3 for him, because it's not – he should still be at Clemson. He got overpassed by the freshman there. They kind of split time. I mean, I give it to Georgia Tech. They had a game plan. They stuck to that game plan. They had a strong run game. Defense did their job, and they milked the clock. And they milked the clock to the point where they didn't give Florida State the ball back at the end of the game there. So I wouldn't say they're done. ACC is definitely stronger than it's been in years past. And, I mean, if you go in with 2-3, you can get them with 2-3 losses. They're from a Power 5. But it wasn't a strong first showing on a national stage in Dublin.
And Joe, I want to hear from you. kind of what Russ said here. If the ACC is stronger, or is it just more mid than ever, as the kids say nowadays?
That's a great question, Justin. I mean, I think before I can answer it, I need to see this weekend, see how some of the other teams do in the ACC. Initially I'm thinking their conference looks very competitive, but after seeing this performance by Florida State, it could be just that this conference has kind of gone mid. Shout out to Dublin. It looks like it's becoming a great week 0 place. Last year the Notre Dame game looked like a banger of a time, and then seeing how many Florida State fans traveled to Dublin this year made it look even more of a blast. So I think, I hope they do it again next year in Dublin. But when it comes to the ACC, it'll be interesting. I mean, now I think a lot is riding on Clemson and or Miami. I think those are two. The fact that Florida just took a bad L, they'll probably argue that it's week 0. It was across the pond. I'm sure they'll spin somehow that, last year negatively impacted them for this game. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting what happens with the ACC, because I thought the ACC could have had a very deep schedule with all the competition, with all the competitive teams, but it could be the exact opposite. Just a lot of them are mid at best.
Hey, well, I'm gonna throw this at Pete. I give Justin a hard time. You're saying we were all kind of wrong. Actually, Pete, you were the only one who was wrong on you called the over. Me, Justin, and Joe all called the under. So suck it, Pete. We got that right. You got that wrong. Everything else.
My analysis was pretty good because I had them covering. I think I had them covering at least.
Yeah, you had them covering, but you missed pretty bad on the overall.
Well, I thought there'd be more points. I mean, the way the game started, I feel like there should have been more points, and then it just kind of wasn't. So, yeah, you guys beat me.
I mean, the one thing I will say about that game that impressed me about Georgia Tech was how basically by the fourth quarter they were manhandling Florida State. Like, the physicality, the ESPN announcers kept saying it. The identity of Florida State is evident from their coach, and it's gritty, hard-nosed football. I mean, I hate to say it, it kind of reminded me a little bit of like old school Wisconsin. They just would run down your throats, play action. They do have athletes, so obviously not Wisconsin, but they just ate clock. I think one of their drives was like 11 minutes. And it's like
Georgia Tech, Joe, right?
Yeah, Georgia Tech. What did I say? State. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Georgia Tech. Yeah.
I got what you were talking about.
No, again, if I said Florida State, I meant Georgia Tech. They were gritty. They were pounding the ball. And I thought Florida State would have been more athletic and more dominant in the trenches, and Georgia Tech showed them otherwise.
Staying in the ACC for a moment, I was a little shocked that SMU didn't win bigger. I know it's a jump to the new conference, but they were playing Nevada. I know they were on the road too, but still, last year they were putting up video game numbers. I'm not sure what's gone differently in week 0 for them.
Week 0 is kind of a weird week, though, in all honesty. I mean, you're playing a week before everyone else does, so you have one less week to prepare. Being a football guy back in my day, I remember, if you had to play a little bit week before, it expedites things. So that little extra detail that you have during an extra week off is not there. So some of the things might fall through the cracks. It will be interesting to see how Florida State does this week. I think they bounce back big. I don't think they play really anyone that big, but still, like, week 0s are kind of weird.
Yeah, I was going to say about the rest of their schedule. I mean, they got pretty much – there's 3 games that are going to define them. I mean, it's going to be Clemson, Notre Dame, and Miami. So, I'm not saying the other games are not a cakewalk or something like that, but they really got to get rolling here because those are going to be coming up quick, man.
I mean, they got Boston College on Monday night. They got surprise Memphis, who on the 14th. I mean, Memphis –
Mike Norvell's old team.
You know, yeah, with you, Pete, on Miami and Clemson, Notre Dame.
Don't they play Florida as well?
Yeah, at the end of the year, that's in Tallahassee at Doak Campbell.
Yeah, so I mean, ultimately that game should be an easy one, but it's still a rivalry game, so you can't overlook even that one. And if they play the way they did against Georgia Tech, that game may be real close as well, because I think Billy Napier is going to have Florida.
Will Billy Napier be the coach at that time is the question.
Well, that's a valid question. But if he's having a successful season like I think he possibly will at Florida, I think obviously he will be there.
Last we'll say on this Florida State Georgia Tech game is this game had George O'Leary written all over it. In Ireland, George O'Leary is Irish. He used to coach at Georgia Tech, and Brent Key was his assistant. Brent Key is now the coach there. Not to mention, very stalling offenses, very big guys in the trenches. And, of course, he was there to enjoy it himself. So good for you, George. You built up UCF as well. I'll always be appreciative for that, except for the 2 winless seasons that you brought us, but that's aside.
I don't know if anybody's heard this, and I just heard it passing on the radio that Comcast is blacking out all the West Coast teams in the Big Ten. So if you have Comcast cable, they're blacking it out because something with the Big Ten, they're not putting the Big Ten network on there unless they get a new deal.
Oh, that's the
Raise
first
your
time
hand if you still have Comcast. Anybody? Nope, that's what I thought. That's what I thought.
Yeah, so I'm looking this up quickly just right now. Yeah, it looks like Big Ten Network blacked out on Comcast Infinity for Oregon, Washington, SC, UCLA games. Oh.
Damn, that's crazy.
Yeah. Reasoning, it doesn't say, but that you're going to black out Oregon's games? They're one of the top teams in the nation.
And the whole West Coast, their fans live up and down here. It's going to make a lot of those fans pretty angry.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, Comcast is pretty big just outside of SoCal, right? Because they're huge in the Bay Area and then the whole Northwest, right? Because down here it's mainly Spectrum and Frontier, but everywhere else it's pretty much Comcast, right?
Yeah, they're pretty big, even in Texas, I want to say. Well, moving right along here, that's all the real news we had this week. Is there anything we're forgetting before we move on, guys?
News? Just getting pumped up for this first week 1. That's all I'm saying.
It's going to be a great weekend of football, starting right here with our parlay picks. And we're going to be beginning up in the cold tundra, not right now, of Minnesota. North Carolina visiting the Golden Gophers as a 2-point favorite, 50.5 over-under. Money line here is UNC minus 125, Minnesota plus 105. Let's start with Russ.
All right, so I mean, it's in Minnesota, so I'm going with Minnesota to cover the 2 or to get 2 points, so they'll cover, get the win and the over. Who knows with North Carolina? They lost Drake May, what they're gonna do. Minnesota a little shaky last year, but I'm gonna go with the home team.
All right, Russ is rowing the boat. Rowing the boat. Joe.
Yeah, I mean, Mac Brown, great coach, Hall of Fame coach. I think ultimately, regardless of losing Drake May, he'll have them ready. But I'm just going to go with the home team here. I think, Minnesota had kind of a down year last year. I think they'll bounce back. So I think, I'll give Minnesota the +2. I'll take the over, and because North Carolina will be able to put up points, but I think ultimately Minnesota will win. So I'm with you, Russ. Row the boat.
He's rowing the boat too. Petey, are you rowing the boat?
I'm not. I think North Carolina is going to go in there and win. I mean, it's only 2 points, so you get a field goal, you win it. I trust Mac Brown as a coach. I think he'll have the guys ready. It's not like it's cold up in Minnesota, and I can't remember if they even play inside anymore. I can't remember.
No.
But it's not cold, so I think they're going to be fine. To be honest with you, and a field goal wins the spread. So. Yeah, I'm going North Carolina to cover. I think it's going to be like most Big Ten game. It's going to be pretty low scoring. So I think I'm going to take the under and then UNC to cover and money line.
And Petey, are you keeping track of all these this year?
Yeah, I'm writing them down here.
Okay, excellent. I'm going to join you. I'm going to go North Carolina to cover and money line. I am going to take the under just because both these teams I feel are going to be a little offensively challenged. So there you go. Moving on here, TCU at Stanford. TCU is a 9-point favorite on the road here. Over under is 59.5. Money line TCU minus 310. Stanford plus 250. Starting with Joe.
I think this is probably one of the easiest games to pick this year in this week. I think TCU is just going to, even though it's at Stanford, I think they're just going to roll all over them. I think, they had a terrible season last year. I don't think they're going to have another bad season. So I'm taking TCU minus 9. I think they're going to blow out Stanford and TCU money line.
I've got some different thoughts. This one I feel like could be a potential upset. I'm not going to pick the upset. I'll pick Stanford to cover here, but I do think that it's going to be an over, and I'll go TCU money line. Got that, Pete?
Yep, I got you.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going opposite of all that. I don't know why. I just have this vibe. Something's going to happen up in Stanford. So I'm taking Stanford to cover, Stanford money line, and I'm taking the over.
I was about to go that way, but I thought, what, TCU can score. Stanford, let's see if they're as big and physical under David Shaw like they are now under the new guy. Russ?
Yeah, I'm taking TCU to cover, TCU to win. And you know what? I put the under on my notes, so I'm going to go with the under. I'm going to go with my original pick.
Okay, here's a big one happening in the Mid-Atlantic region. Penn State at West Virginia. Penn State's an 8.5-point favorite. The over-under here is 51. Penn State minus 290 money line. West Virginia plus 235. A home dog here we have West Virginia. A very tough place to play, by the way. Looking at this, I got to go with Penn State. I feel like they're going to make a big statement right out the gate this season, because this is their one chance finally to say, we have an expanded playoff. This is our year to make it. This is our year to finally make some noise in this, and it starts right now. So I'm going to take West Virginia to cover. I don't think Penn State's going to win big here. I'm going to go with the over because it's the Big 12 still, and they know how to score points. And I'll take PSU money line. Russ.
Yeah, I'm going West Virginia's going to cover. 8.5's a lot of points. But I got Penn State winning, and I take the over.
Okay, Russ and I are going side by side here. Pete.
I just don't like Franklin. I don't trust him. It's a tough place to play. Pat McAfee's going to be there with his entire show, getting the entire fan base riled up all week.
Pete, you've muted yourself.
Hype up. Oh, still can't hear you, Pete.
Yeah, dude. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. This mic thing, I don't know what's going on. I don't trust Franklin. I think Penn State's going to come out and kind of lay an egg in a very tough environment. Granted, they play in a tough environment in general on a weekly basis when they play at home. But I don't know. Reverse what I think would happen. I think they're going to lose. I think Penn State's going to come out and lose. So I'm taking West Virginia to cover money line, and I'm taking the over.
I love it being bold. Joe.
Yeah, I'm there with Pete. For some reason, I don't know if it's Franklin. I don't know if it's because it's at West Virginia. There's just something about this game that kind of says don't overlook West Virginia. Even though I know Penn State's defense is going to be legit and their offense is going to be probably better. They have probably one of the best O-lines in the nation. But I don't know. So I'm going West Virginia with the points. I am going to take the over. I think there's going to be points. But I'm taking West Virginia to upset, and this will be my upset of the week.
Love it. Frankly, not all of us are sold on Franklin. I'll show myself out. Now, next up here, Clemson and Georgia, a classic rivalry. Very, very close proximity schools, by the way. No two schools are closer, I don't think, out of conference like that. That's pretty cool. But anyways, here, Clemson at Georgia. Georgia is the favorite at Sanford Stadium, 13.5. No surprise. The over-under is a mere 48.5, which is kind of shocking based on how easily Georgia's been able to score the last few years. But Georgia is also a 550 money line favorite here. Clemson plus 410. Let's start with Pete this time.
Ooh, this is a tough one because normally I would say screw Dabo, go Georgia. But Georgia doesn't have Brock Bowers anymore. And now that Florida State lost, I think Dabo kind of has a little bit of, he smells blood, So he's probably going to have his guys amped up here to be like, hey, let's go out and make a statement. I think it's going to be a close game. I still think Kirby's going to come out on top. So I'm going to take Georgia, but I think it's going to be under. And I think Clemson's going to cover.
It's funny you mentioned that it's going to be the under because the last time that these teams did meet, it was week 1 of 2020, the 2020 season, I believe, because that's when Georgia won their first title in this era. And that game really just came down to a pick 6. It was just horrible offense the entire time. Now, given it was JT Daniels starting and not Stetson Bennett, who we found was a much better fit into the offense. But this time they've got one of the Heisman favorites here, Carson Beck. And for that reason, I think Georgia's going to win and they're going to hit the over. They're going to destroy Clemson this time. Give me Georgia everything to cover, over, and the money line. Russ.
Okay, Joe, you want to go real quick?
Yeah, I got you. I ultimately Georgia's going to win. Until someone actually beats Georgia, I'm going to just roll with Georgia. That team is obviously number 1 for a reason. I'm going to take the under, though, because ultimately I think it's week 1. I think both defenses are going to be clicking and the offenses aren't. I think Kirby's going to probably rely a little bit more on the run game initially. And with that, I think Clemson's going to keep it close with the 13.5, as well as they have a veteran quarterback as well, so who can facilitate the rock. So, Clemson with the points, under, and Georgia wins.
Russ?
Yeah, so I'm hitting it over. I think it's going to be a little closer game. I think Georgia might be overlooking this game a little bit. So I'm going to say they cover. I'm going to say 7 to 9 point victory. I think there'll be a lot of points. Get second year of Cade Klubnik in the Garrett Riley system, so I think there'll be a lot of points. Be a little closer than expected, but at the end of the day, Georgia wins.
Oh, boy, I've been waiting for this game to appear on our show all week because I know that Pete and Joe are going to be a little divided here because of who's coaching the other team now. Notre Dame at Texas A&M. A&M is a 3-point favorite at Kyle Field, 46.5 over under. A&M is a minus 155 money line favorite at home as well. Notre Dame plus 130. Russ, I want to hear from you first.
I mean, I think it's going to be a good game. I've been waiting for this one all year, so I'm really pumped for it. I think it's going to be a close game. Well, we got the over/under at physical battle. I will say I know it's Elko's first game with A&M. Kyle Field's a tough place to play. And I think he definitely brings a different type of mentality than Jimbo did. So I could see those guys being stoked for that game, ready to go. I was split on this game, but I'm going to go with my roots, which is I'm going to take Notre Dame to win. I'm going to take, obviously, Notre Dame to cover. And I'm going to hit the over because 46.5 is not too many points.
All right. Well, I'm going to go next year because I know that Joe and Pete are going to have a lot to say on this. I got a feeling this is going to go to overtime. It's going to be such a great game, back and forth. The offenses might not be clicking right away. Riley Leonard is still new to Notre Dame, transferred from Duke. So learning the new system under Marcus Freeman, of course. Mike Elko, this is his debut as the head coach of Texas A&M. You know those fans are going to be fired up because Jimbo is gone. They're going to be really, really loud down there. And once overtime hits, God, I could really see it going either way, but I'll go with Notre Dame just because I'm going to give Marcus Freeman the benefit of the doubt over the pupil as well. So I'll take Notre Dame money line. I'll take them to cover, but I'm going to take the under. I think it's going to be about 42 point total, 42 or 43.
Ooh,
Joe.
taking the under on overtime. Okay.
Yep, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, if Notre Dame hadn't lost their left tackle in fall camp, I'd probably feeling a lot more confident. Now having a true freshman at your left tackle is always a concern. But again, Notre Dame's defense was one of the best in the nation last year statistically. Bringing in a returning OC and Mike Denbrock, I think, is going to revitalize the offense, which has been pretty stagnant, pretty basic in the past couple of years. It won't be clicking on full cylinders by no stretch of the imagination, but I definitely think Notre Dame is going to surprise some people this year, at least in this game. It's definitely going to be a tight one. It's going to be close, but obviously I think Notre Dame's going to pull it out. So I'm taking Notre Dame with the points, taking Notre Dame money line. And this is the tough one for me was the over-under because I can definitely see this being a tight defensive battle game because you have two defensive minds as the head coach. But I'm taking the over. I think 146 is pretty low, but like I said, I think Notre Dame's offense is going to surprise people, and they're going to put up points.
Not to mention that Riley Leonard gets to face his old coach first game of the season.
And you don't think that he's been kind of talking to Mike Denbrock about how Mike Elko runs his defenses and stuff? Yeah, it'll be fun to watch, and I will definitely be watching somewhere.
I'll be watching a Coastal on my gig.
Mm-hmm.
Shameless plug there. Let's go the Lokes, my band. Pete.
I mean, to me, I've been bouncing back and forth on this, but I think Notre Dame, obviously, they're going to win. We're going to hit the over. I think this is setting up for a 2020 game with a game-winning drive to hit the 47. You always say it's a tough place to play, right? Well, pretty much since Johnny Manziel has left, no team going in there has really found it that damn tough. So I think Notre Dame can go in there and they can take it to them. I do think Elko's defensive abilities, where he's been before and what he's shown, you have to take those seriously. So that's the only reason I think it's going to be a close game within a touchdown, and it almost might hit the under. But that program, what the problems with that weren't the players. It was the heart. It was, it wasn't the schemes. It was, hey, can you get these guys to buy in? And I think one off season, it's going to take a little bit of time for him to get that thing up and running. Now, they're going to definitely be better on the defensive side of the ball, but I think Notre Dame's going to get this one. So I'm hitting the over. I think Riley Leonard's going to come and ball out. Freeman's going to have he's got an offensive coordinator now, so he'd have to really do, offensive anything. So I think Notre Dame's going to have a great game, man. I'm excited for it. It's going to be an amazing week one game. That's where College Game Day is going to be at. So they basically go from Ireland to now watching the Irish play. So 2 weeks in a row, Irish stuff. So I think that's a sign right there, dude. ND Nation, we got it. Book it.
Bring back Seamus.
Let's go. Yeah, literally, get that guy on a plane right now.
We're going to say thumbs down to the cult this week. That is Texas A&M. Let's go Irish.
I mean, that's another reason. I mean, obviously being in a religion's a cult, but they are a cult, so screw them.
Mm-hmm. I mean, have you guys ever been to College Station? There's nothing to do there. I've been a couple times.
Why would anyone go there?
I mean, unless you just like desert and oil, not a whole lot.
Yeah. It's more like plains.
Trying to find a wife that would rather wear her class ring versus her wedding ring. Yeah, that's the only reason you go there.
Aggie fans, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Aggie ring tradition is you order at the beginning of the year, the end of the year, you drop it into a pint of beer, and then you chug it all the way until you get to it. Is that what it is? Tell me in the comments.
I think you're right. Yeah, tell us, please.
Yeah. I should be embarrassed because I grew up in Houston, not too far away, with a bunch of Aggie friends, but I guess I didn't pay that much attention. I know y'all. I mean,
they're the ones. They're the ones that are embarrassed.
Oh boy, coming up here, one of my favorite once in a blue moon rivalry games that pops up just about every 5 or 6 years. Miami at Florida. I personally remember this game. The last time they played, 2019, was the night that Andrew Luck retired from the NFL. It was a big shocking news, but what was more shocking to me was how much of a complete joke the game was last time. Yeah, both teams were in not a great place at the beginning of the season. Florida ended up having a good year, Miami not so much. But just the comedy of errors that happened to end the game. I remember specifically Jaron Williams and the Hurricanes got stopped on fourth down with about 4 minutes to go. And then Felipe Franks, the UF quarterback, goes and mocks the camera, saying like, yeah, like talking all this crap. Very next play, he throws the worst interception that I've ever seen in my entire life. And they give the ball right back to Miami, down like a field goal or something. And so Miami had the chance to go back. And then Miami got stopped again on fourth down. It was just some of the worst football I've ever seen. But what I remember most about that night was SportsCenter screwed up. Whoever was running the social media, and they said, what a game. Florida Gator football beats Florida Gator football, whatever the score was. They tagged Florida twice. And I'm like, honestly, that pretty much describes it. They beat themselves, and they still won. Now, that all being said, dear God, I hope we get a better game this time. Miami seems to be in a better place. Florida, this might be it for Billy Napier. We got to see what they're bringing this time around with Graham Mertz. But I'll start off here as the designated Florida boy. Russ, no offense. Miami at Florida. Miami's a 2.5-point favorite. Over under here, 54. Miami minus 142. UF plus 120 money line. This time I'm going to go with, it's a toss-up because the Swamp really is a tough place to play. I've been there. It's super loud. Now, Miami plays in the ACC where it doesn't get too loud unless you go to Clemson or Florida State. They play Florida State every year, and it goes back and forth. But this time they're playing in the Swamp. I'm going to go with, I guess I'll go with the Hurricanes, but I do think it's going to be very close. They're going to cover, but it's going to be, about a field goal game that they'll win by. And I'm going to take the under here. I don't believe in this offense just yet. Let me see it to believe it first. And I'll take the Hurricane money line. Joe?
Yeah, I mean, after last week, I feel like we were talking a bit about Miami. I kind of, I feel like you guys kind of sold me with, just they played so many close games. If you just clean up the coaching blunders, Miami's probably a lot different team record-wise last year. I think second year around, you can't make the same mistake twice. So I'm taking Miami with the 2.5. I realize that it is the Swamp. I think, though, Miami's the better team as well. So, I mean, I'm taking Miami to win. And, again, I think similar to essentially like the Notre Dame game is the over-under is the toughest decision. Do you think these two teams are going to put up points? I think Miami does. I don't know so much about Florida. So with that, I'm going to take the under just because, as we saw last year, Florida couldn't put up many points. And so I think it's going to be one-sided. I think Miami's going to win big.
Russ?
Yeah, hey, Justin, that comment did not bug me at all. I'm going to speak to the two people in this podcast here that I think Joe knows who we're talking about. I don't consider myself a Floridian yet. I've only been here 1 year. The other two people in this thing, you've been in California a couple of years, like, local legends. I'm like, there's a couple people in here born and raised. Don't need to say it. Don't need to throw it out. We just know. But I've only been here a year, so I still don't consider myself, a local Florida. I think that takes a lot of time. So it did not offend me at all. But as I said last week, I'm on Miami. I think they're gonna win the ACC. So I'm taking the cover. I'm taking them to win, obviously. And, yeah, I'm going to hit the under because I just don't trust Florida's offense.
Ooh, the Gators' last hope. Petey, are you that saving blind?
I just don't trust Napier. I mean, going into his third season, we talked earlier. We're like, well, we don't even know if he's going to be there at the end of the season. Yeah, I just I don't. So I think I'm going to go Miami. I think they're going to cover. They're going to win. And I think it's going to hit the over. I don't know. For some reason, I could feel like there being some kind of random turnover plays that add points to the game. So that's what I'm doing.
Russ, I do apologize. I am the designated Florida boy. You're the designated Florida man.
Hey, it's fine. I've only been here a year. Not gonna. And honestly, I mean, like where I am, like in Florida, doesn't. I mean, maybe this is me, and I know a lot of people we got on this channel are from Florida area. Where I'm in like Tampa area, Sarasota, Miami, it doesn't really feel like the South. I don't know, Justin, if you can explain that. This feels more like the East Coast to me. Maybe if you start moving up towards Gainesville, that area starts getting a little southern, but this part of Florida kind of feels like the East Coast to me.
Yeah, the further south you go in Florida, the more you either feel like you're in A, New York, or B, Cuba. And there's really no in between. But then if you start heading a bit north, once you pass Jupiter just about, then you start getting into the fair mix of, you get the Southerners who live in Orlando, who live in Tampa, and then you still have the amount of South Floridians who've moved up to get that South Florida feel. Then once you get north of that to Ocala and Gainesville and Jacksonville and Tallahassee, then it really kicks in. Jacksonville is basically southern Georgia. It feels like the real South, and that southern charm is there. Tallahassee, they say Tallahassee. You go there, you feel like you're in Mississippi or Alabama. It's a completely different game over there. And anybody who's gone to Florida State or University of Florida could vouch for that.
Throw out to Gainesville. I don't know if anybody, famous musician from Gainesville. Anybody know?
Oh, of course, Tom Petty.
There you go, baby.
R.I.P. to a legend.
And I don't apologize. I've been in California for exactly a third of my life. I'm a damn legend, all right, dude? And next year makes it more than a third of my life. So screw you.
There's different types of legends, I guess.
It's hard to be a legend when you're 0 to 11 years old. A lot easier to be one when you're 23 to 33, you know?
Pete's a legend in his own mind for sure.
Dude, it's all about your mentals, bro.
Speaking of California and speaking of legends, we've got a legendary matchup coming up here in Las Vegas between LSU and USC. Our game of the week here. LSU is a 3-point favorite here, which is going to be at Allegiant Stadium, by the way. 64 is the over-under. LSU is a minus 185 money line favorite. USC coming in at plus 154. Joe, you have a master's degree from USC, so I want your take first.
This game is actually definitely one of those interesting games where you just don't know where it's going to go because, you have Miller Moss, quarterback from SC. You expect the Trojans to put up a lot of points. They got a new D coordinator, so, you expect their defense to be better. And watching them at the spring game, their defense did look a little bit more organized, a little more in shape. And then you have LSU on the other side. Hate Brian Kelly, but, he's a guy for, he's their head coach for a reason. He can win some of those games. I'm not going to say the big game, but he can win these games. Playing SC at Notre Dame multiple times, he knows the opponent. But you lose your Heisman Trophy winner. You lose your two best wide receivers. I think those are hard to replace, especially game one, week one. So I'm going to take the Trojans to win. I'm going to take them with the points. I'm going to take the over. I think both sides are going to score. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of defense. But ultimately, I think SC pulls it out. I just think they're moving a little bit more in the right direction, and I think LSU is going to take a step back.
Petey.
It pains me to say this, but I think LSU is going to win this football game. I am simply basing this on the story I read a couple weeks ago that basically USC has been trying to get out of this game for months. And him and Brian Kelly have the same agent, and he asked Brian if they could do a favor with the networks and try to get this out. But ESPN basically said, no, you're not getting out of this game. So simply based on that, the fact that it seems like he didn't want to play LSU on a neutral site, granted, not really neutral, mostly USC fans probably there, but I'm going to take LSU to win it. I mean, Brian Kelly, for how much I hate him, he's pretty good at winning early season big games, and he's very good at preparation. So I don't know why, just simply based on that. It's just a gut feeling. One person doesn't want to play the game. I'm going to take the other team to win. So I'm taking LSU on everything, and I think it's going to hit the over.
If only LSU was playing Florida State, then LSU would have definitely lost week 1.
Yep, that's a proven fact at this point. I'm going to pick LSU all across the board just for the simple reason that it's still Lincoln Riley, and it means it's still Lincoln Riley's defense, which is never good. Never a good formula for winning. You can only win really by outscoring the other team. And while I think, yes, they have the potential to outscore, I still don't trust USC's defense because of solely Lincoln Riley. I also do like that Brian Kelly is a seasoned veteran coach, and even though he did lose his Heisman winner and his big-name receivers, he'll find a way to plug the gap. Because think about it, USC's in the same boat. They lost their Heisman-winning quarterback as well. So this is a big fresh start for the both of them. Now, last time LSU went anywhere near the West Coast, which was, I believe, UCLA to start the season a couple years ago under Ed Orgeron, they lost pretty badly to Chip Kelly. I think that's not going to happen this time. Brian Kelly is going to make sure those guys are prepared. Week 1 doesn't worry me at all. Late season Brian Kelly, yes, does worry me. So give me LSU spread, give me the over, and give me LSU money line. Russ.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. There'll be lots of points, so it'll be a nice shootout in Las Vegas. I got LSU covering. I got LSU winning. Even though they did lose Daniels, I mean, you still got, was it Garrett Nussmeier or Nussmeier will be, quarterback, and so he's been in the program for a while. And I'm just not that sold on SC this year so far. I mean, I got to see him play first, but
the other caveat, though, remember, is LSU lost their offensive coordinator who went to Notre Dame, so they have a new offensive system.
Which could be a good thing for Garrett Nussmeier. Who knows? Because the last one was perfectly tailored for Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, and maybe Jaden Daniels carried the coordinator, so maybe he helped him get a better job.
Yeah, I mean, remember Joe Brady with Joe Burrow?
But look at him now; he's the OC at the Bills. So I mean, he has to be doing something right.
Well, I mean, he went to Carolina right after LSU and did nothing. So he's got to prove himself.
Well, a lot of coaches have gone to Carolina and done nothing. So
fair. Okay, well, there you have it. There's our Paradise Parlay for the week. Now for our predictions. We kind of got the ball rolling last week with some of our predictions of who's going to end up as the conference champions. But this week, we're going to take a little bit different approach, starting with who's our upset cover or other game we're watching this week. Joe, you already gave us your upset of the week, but tell us who you're watching.
Oh man, there are way too many games to watch this, if you have multiple TVs, bring your laptop out, just have it all spread out, have the ultimate man cave. Upset Clemson. West Virginia over Penn State is my upset. I'll definitely be watching that Clemson Georgia game though. I'll be definitely watching that Notre Dame game, and then SC, LSU are kind of my primetime games, but there's no bad game. I mean, I was looking at the schedule earlier today, and I was just like, it's literally from 9 o'clock until late night. I'll be watching college football.
It's going to be a late one.
Mm-hmm. Russ, who are you watching this week?
I'm with Joe. There's just too many games to, talk about from right there at 12 Eastern. I'm on the East Coast right off the bat, that Georgia game, all the way to the Monday night, So, I mean, I'm just all these ranked games are amazing this week. And obviously, that Miami-Florida game is not a ranked matchup. That should be a great game, in-state matchup. But there's just a lot of good games on the docket for week 1.
Any upsets
Oh,
or covers for you,
all
Russ?
right. Justin threw this out that I went to school in North Dakota last weekend because I didn't know Montana State's mascot that threw a little something at me because I went to school in North Dakota, not Montana. That's all the way on the other side of the state. So my upset this week is the Bison, not Bison, Bison over Deion Sanders Buffaloes on Thursday night, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific.
I saw that. I'm like, ooh, somebody's going to pick that game as their upset, and I love it. And by the way, bison and buffalo are two different animals, in case anybody's wondering. But they're very commonly called the same thing.
I mean, we usually a lot of these FCS games we see early, an FBS team does surprise us. And North Dakota State is a powerhouse at the FBS level. I mean, powerhouse. If they had the facilities, they probably should be a D, moving up. They don't have the facilities to move that up. It's not big enough. But can you not put them in the Mountain West and that team would not be able to compete? I think they would.
They would definitely be. They would definitely compete.
Petey, who are you watching?
Oh, man. I think after week 0 with the ACC, all these ACC matchups I'm really keen on. I mean, the Clemson-Georgia game, how Miami plays against Florida. What if all three lose? And then the ACC's 0-3 with their top 3 best teams going into week 2. So I'm really paying attention to those. And then obviously Notre Dame. But my upset pick, I think, is Stanford versus TCU. I think TCU is overrated, especially going to Stanford. So that's my upset pick. But yeah, really, I'm keen on the ACC. SEC doesn't have too crazy matchups. They're playing the ACC. But yeah, I'm really keen on, the top 3 teams we think in the ACC could be 0-3 going into next week. And I think that'd be huge for the whole conference.
I love it. And I'm going to go with, I think FSU is going to get a very big surprising scare from Boston College at home this week. Last year, the game ended in a heartbreaking fashion for Boston College. Former UCF quarterback Thomas Castellanos still there at BC. He can run. He makes a lot of mental mistakes. Let's see if he's cleaned up his act at all. But FSU looks vulnerable. They look shaky. And they're a 17-point favorite at home. This seems like a very easy cover potentially if they could just get their head straight in Boston College. So give me the Eagles covering that at FSU. But another game I want to watch here is FIU at Indiana. And Russ, you'll appreciate this because former JMU coach Kurt Signetti is now the man at the helm at Indiana. So I'm excited to see how the Hoosiers look on the offensive side, especially. Now for our sleeper team of the season. This means a team that nobody's really talking about but has potential to make a lot of noise down the road. Starting with Pete.
We've talked about a lot of good teams that we have our eye on, all these type of things. But I think really people are kind of sleeping on Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin. I think this is ripe for Kiffin to have a freaking run this year, man. I mean, if you just look at their schedule, he doesn't play Texas at all. He doesn't play Alabama. Obviously, he plays Georgia and he'll play LSU. But his schedule's not that crazy. It looks pretty good, and it might be if he can get through the season. He doesn't play LSU until the 6th of October, and then he'll have a couple weeks. They play Oklahoma, but I think Ole Miss will take him down. But then he doesn't play Georgia for another 3 weeks after that, so they get kind of time to game plan. I think this could be Ole Miss and the Lane Train's season to shine. Saban's not there, so his uncle's not there to kind of whip him into place and kick their butt. So I think this is really on Lane. I mean, he's got to show here why he's a good coach. And they got a lot of good kids coming in, a lot of good guys returning. So I think there's pressure on them, but they're kind of flying under the radar. So the pressure might not be too crazy.
That's a good pick. Russ, who are you thinking?
Yeah, Pete, a lot of people are sleeping on the number 6 team in the nation.
I mean, come on. Yeah, it might be number 6, but people are overhyping other teams. USC's 23rd, and they're getting more press than Ole Miss is.
I had 2, but I saw one person in here might have jumped on it, so I wanted to be a little different. So I'm going with Virginia Tech. I think they could be a surprise team. even win the ACC, but I'm going with Virginia Tech.
Interesting. Is there any big change that happened this year at Virginia Tech, Russ, that we should know about?
I don't think so. I mean, they brought back a lot. I just got a gut feeling. I've been doing a little, not much, but the other one I was going to go with, I'm not going to name it. I'm going to let you go, but I was going to go with another school. I saw it on the list. I don't really like to jump on those same as everybody else. I want to do something different. So I just got a good feeling Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech was one of the sleepers in my ACC, so I think they're going to have a good year.
And
Yeah, they're not playing anyone. I mean, they don't even play. All they really play is Miami and Clemson. Obviously, Georgia Tech's on there, who just beat Florida State, but their schedule is not that crazy. Like they don't play a bunch of other top teams from really any other division. So yeah, Russ. I mean, if they win some games, they could definitely go on a run, man.
You got Miami.
It's really Miami and Clemson are like their two.
Miami, Clemson.
Yeah, maybe Boston College or maybe
Yeah.
Georgia Tech. I mean, but like that's really it.
Yeah. And Russ, I think I know what school you're talking about because my sleeper is Nebraska. Having Dylan Raiola now in the fold, slated to start as a true freshman, by the way, with Matt Rule, who almost took them to bowl eligibility last year. By the way, Nebraska, longest drought of making a bowl game currently in the FBS. I believe it's 8 seasons now. They are hungry. They've got real talent now, raw but real talent. Let's see if they can capitalize on it. But they had a really good start last season to the new era. Let's see what they can do in the Big Ten. A very stacked Big Ten, by the way. Joe.
Well, Russ, you should be a salesman because I don't know if you could really call them a sleeper team. I put Miami as a sleeper. I think, again, Florida State and Clemson were the other two, the real two ACC teams that everyone was really talking about, then Miami. Just after kind of doing some research, I'm also going to put West Virginia in there. I think West Virginia could sleep on some teams, especially if they get past Penn State. So really either one. I'm going to go with Russ as the salesman. I'm going to go with Miami as the sleeper team, even though they're not really a sleeper team because they're in the top 25. But again, I think they're the third pick to win the ACC over behind Clemson and originally Florida State. So I'm going with Miami.
Yeah, and hey, if number 6 is not a sleeper team, I would probably throw in there Tennessee. I don't know. I kind of excited to see what type of year Tennessee has. So I think, they could be a wild card going into the season. Well, they are a wild card, I feel like. So I'll take Tennessee as well.
I like it, Joe, West Virginia. Maybe, hey, Pat McAfee, we're holding you the spot there. If you want to come on, we got a spot for you every week.
Hell, he's going to be at the game. I think his show's going to be there Friday, and then he's heading to College Game Day, obviously Saturday. But they're going to be in West Virginia, I think, Thursday and Friday this week for his show.
Love it. Rolling on here, we're going to speed through to Coach of the Year. I'll get things started with Pete's a good salesman as well because I'm picking Lane Kiffin as our Coach of the Year this year. Like he said, it's his year to shine. The SEC is very wide open outside of Georgia and possibly Texas, so they could really make some noise. Now that Saban's gone, they're looking for a new top dog that's just bullying the rest of the conference, whether that's Georgia or whether that's somebody else. Lane Kiffin is in great position to take the helm. Joe.
Now, this may be some low-hanging fruit, but I'm going Mike Elko. The bar was set so low by good old Jimbo that I think if he just gets them a winning record, College Station is going to be jacked. So I think he's going to do more than that just in his first year. Is it Coach of the Year worthy? I would say that's probably the stretch that I'm giving it, but I think ultimately he's going to turn that program around very quick, just like how Neon Dion did Colorado last year.
Yeah, I believe he doubled their win total, Dion did. Okay, Russ.
Yeah, I'm kind of split on a lot of coaches, so I'll just go with Kirby Smart. As we all know, I think whoever ends up winning it all will be Coach of the Year. But there's probably good 4 or 5 candidates that, I'm not really sold on that pick, but I'm going to go with that because I think Georgia probably will end up winning it all. Even though I picked Texas to win the SEC, we're in a different ball game this year.
That we are. Pete.
Not to put any pressure on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, but I think the schedule is setting up to where they could go on a run this season. So I think Marcus Freeman could be in the talks of being Coach of the Year. It really just depends on, how kind of week one goes. I think, Joe, you're right about Elko. Even if they have some very close losses, like very good games, I think the energy is what's going to be shifting there. So obviously you can't win Coach of the Year and lose too many games, but he might be up in the running too. I was also thinking, how's Alabama going to do? And DeBoer, I could see him coming in and, exactly what he did last year at Washington. Taking Jalen Milroe, who we're going to get to next, but he's kind of a sleeper Heisman candidate for me. I think they could be balling out, man. I think that could be a team that could just really come out of nowhere. No one expects them to win the whole thing, and I think they could probably do it. Especially how Jalen played last year. So, yeah, of those three, I'm going to go with Marcus Freeman because I think his road might be the easiest. Even though it's a tough schedule, but easier than the other guys.
Go ahead and continue into our next segment. Just go ahead, gush about Jalen Milroe. What's our next segment? It's all about the Heisman. Petey, go ahead.
Yeah, man. Mainly what I just said about what the coaching staff and DeBoer was able to do at Washington last year. That guy's a winner. He knows how to coach a good offense. Milroe, he could do so many things outside of just throwing the ball. He can get it done with his feet. I think there's a lot there for him, man. And dang it, I hate Alabama. I hate him a lot less now that Saban's gone. But I think he could be a Heisman Trophy winner. So I don't think they're going to win the whole thing. I think they'll definitely make the playoff. But I think he's going to go on a run this year and have a great season.
Russ.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of split it between Ewers and Carson, Quinn Ewers and Carson Beck. I'm not totally sold on Dylan Gabriel yet. I want to see him, but I'm going to go down the middle with those two.
Joe?
Yeah, I'm going with Quinn Ewers at the beginning. I also thought a Shador in there as well, especially if Colorado has a good season, which I think they will. But I just think Quinn making it and taking Texas to the playoff last year, losing to a really good Washington team. He's back for another year for a reason, because honestly, he could have probably gone to the pros and may not be a first-round pick last year, but he would have been a high pick. But he's coming back to ultimately win a championship, maybe a Heisman. They have a very tough road, and I think if he gets through that test, especially first year in the SEC, with one loss, I don't see how he's not in New York at the end of the year.
But not to mention, too, he's got the most popular backup quarterback in college football breathing down his neck. If he goes down or if he starts playing poorly, the fans are going to be calling for that guy.
Yeah, I think that's the pressure of it. I think ultimately we saw last year that he could definitely perform at the level we all think he can. But this is a new season; anything's possible.
Yeah, maybe that's going to push him even harder. Iron sharpens iron, right?
Exactly.
It's the only way to go, especially if you're a Manning. And for me, it's really up in the air. I know we make these picks so early in the year. I don't think Dylan Gabriel is going to take every snap for Oregon this year, just because I haven't been able to count on his health being there 100% of the time the last couple of years. But this is his last year in college. He started at UCF in 2019, bursting onto the spot, beating out Brandon Wimbush, who transferred in from Notre Dame. Now he's at his third school, technically fourth, if you count UCLA for his 2 weeks there. And so I just feel like there's always the chance. I'll put him down now, but do I love the pick? No. Do I want to see him win it? I wouldn't mind it, because technically that would be UCF's first ever Heisman winner, having put up a uniform. Yeah, it's just early. But we're going to wrap it up with our cheers of the week. And this week we're going to start with Russ.
All right, so obviously Georgia Tech. I'm going to do a little shameless plug right now, the guys, though. I got here on FTSN, 8 p.m. or 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, On Deck, the only baseball podcast here on FTSN. Every Wednesday, join in. And
Yes,
I
highlights
just
for us.
said that Georgia Tech, great week 0. Great week 0.
Joe.
I see Pete wrote it down. I may have mentioned it earlier, so I'm gonna do my cheers. Yeah, Dublin, Ireland. Again, 2 years in a row. It's looked like a banger. You know, maybe in the future when we get some sponsors, week 0,
Yes.
we'll be there drinking some Guinness. Until then, I'll be drinking Guinness on my couch.
If I land an Oasis ticket in Dublin, you know that I'll be there next summer. Yes, I can't wait for Oasis to be back. Please, please, please let me in the ticket lottery, whoever the gods are with concerts. Pete.
Yeah, Joe. Joe's exactly right. The entire media week and the coverage over the weekend, the fans, just the whole vibe, and also watching Jesse Palmer drink a Guinness on live, TV. I was also sitting at home drinking a billion Guinness. I'm all out of them. Otherwise, I'd chug one right now. So yeah, cheers to cheers to Ireland, to Guinness, and just an amazing kind of tradition now that's, I feel like, kind of becoming a staple in college football. That, I mean, obviously it's been around for the decades, but not every year. And it seems like now it's a staple. So yeah, we got to get over there, guys. Beg, bar, and steal, whatever we got to do to get over there next year. We got to try it.
My first cheer of the week here, it goes to Montana State, who scored 21 points in the fourth quarter to come back and beat Bronco Mendenhall and New Mexico 35-31, spoiling his return to college football. Way to go, Montana State. Way to respond. Show them that the FCS ain't scared of the FBS, even if it is the lowest level of FBS you could get. It just proves that the FCS at the very top can be very interesting. And I know Russ is picking the upset of FCS over FBS week 1 here. But I also want to give another cheer to Aiden Barr, the kicker of Georgia Tech, who not only kicked the game-winning kick, but I learned he's also of Gaelic descent. He's Irish himself. And he's basically kicking it on his home turf, a homecoming for him. So good for you, Aiden Barr. You redeemed yourself. But I also got to shout out the Florida State kicker for making that 60-yarder. That was pretty cool, too.
That was a hell of a kick.
Yeah, that was pretty dope.
But can I just say the fact that Bronco Mendenhall is back being a coach? I remember texting you guys on Saturday, just like hadn't heard that name in years. So
literally,
hey, cheers to Bronco being back in college football.
Welcome back, Bronco. Welcome back. And that'll do it for us here at Touchdown in Paradise this week. I'm Justin.
I'm Joe.
I'm Russ.
And I'm local legend Pete.
And this is the Finstock Sports Network. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you next week.